Welcome back. Today's portion, as I discussed earlier, begins with Pharaoh's dream and ends with the brothers in a seemingly dead-end circumstance, locked in jail. And let's explore the middle of those two elements of the story. The story opens up with a very interesting phrase. It obviously is continued from last week's portion. And last week's portion ends, V'lo zachar sar hamashkim et Yosef ve'yishkachehu. And the butler, the wine butler, the sommelier of Pharaoh, the sommelier of Pharaoh who was told that you will leave jail and go back to serving the king. And you, the baker, you will go back and the king will hang you. And Joseph distinguishes the two because the sommelier, it can be argued, was unaware that a fly had landed in his cup. Whereas the baker, having left a stone in the bread, that would have been his responsibility. That's the Midrash story of what actually happened, but it sort of distinguishes the way justice would be meted out. Are you personally responsible, or was it an accident? In the case of the sommelier, it was an accident, and he was let off and returned to his position. But v'lo zachar sar hamashkim et Yosef. When Joseph said to him, please, when you get out, do me a favor, let them know there's a kid here. Let them know there's someone here who's really good at interpreting dreams. Let them know there's someone here capable. Let them know there's someone here, there's a person here. I'm not just a slave, not just someone falsely accused. No, I'm a real human being, says Joseph. Let them know that. Tell them. V'lo zachar, he did not remember Joseph. And then it says, the dagger through the heart of the story of memory, he didn't remember him, vayishkachehu, and indeed, he forgot him. Not only didn't he remember him, in other words, he was busy, he got back his job, he was having parties, celebrating, he was back into the palace life, he forgot him entirely. In other words, he paid no notice to the individual that had given him glad tidings and good news, and in fact was right. In fact, this year for all of us, COVID has been a year in which many of us have been forgotten. Whether we've forgotten ourselves because our lives and routines have changed, we've forgotten our loved ones in the sense that we can no longer see them, we've forgotten the casual relationships we've had because we can't go to Florida, we can't travel, we can't visit old friends, we can't just bump into new people. Have we forgotten what it's like to shop? Have we forgotten what it's like to be free? We've forgotten what it's like to smile. We've forgotten what it's like to have normal conversations with ordinary people in which you can actually understand what they are saying. There's so much forgotten in our lives right now. It is impossible to know if we'll ever recover from that forgottenness or if we are indelibly changed. But it is a year of forgetting. We are forgetting so many of the things we don't even know we've forgotten. The way we shop for food, the way we relate to individuals, the way we look at people who are coming close to us. All these things are part of the forgetting. We are indelibly changed and not always for the good. Hopefully, as COVID dissipates, we'll make better choices. We'll make the choices that we really want. We don't have to go back to the old routines. We are free, once we are in the forgotten mode, to choose what we remember. We don't have to remember it, but we should not do vayishkachehu and utterly forget it. The year of COVID has been a year of forgetting, and I too have been in a circumstance here where it's been hard to remember what it was like. In a sanctuary for over 8 months, looking at a camera, without a single soul in a seat. While perhaps I've communicated effectively, it has not been easy. And it's a really hard thing to do every week and bring the energy and love and caring that I do, But that is what I do. And I want no special credit for it. I don't want to be seen as heroic. I just want to do what I do because I love doing it. And it is you, the people, inside of my little camera there, that stir my imagination that greater things are possible. When you were here with me, we fed off each other's energy. Now I'm living on the stored energy of all those years to keep me connected, spiritually engaged, and continuing the effort to make our lives closer and better. But it has changed. And there is an emptiness that I don't know I will ever overcome. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know what it's like to go back to shul. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know whether we will actually feel connected. I don't know. Because number one, we don't know when COVID will be over. And number two, we don't know when COVID is over for some, will be over for the rest. You cannot imagine a community coming back to the way it was when parts of your community are no longer able to be present. What if the elderly can't come? What if children don't come? What if this is just a middle-aged synagogue? What happens to all the feelings we had and all the dichotomies and all the tensions and all the stresses of trying to please everybody? What if we only have to please a very small amount of people and therefore it changes us forever because the dynamic of a synagogue is about the range and need of many, not of the few? What if the future will be very different than the past? What if we don't remember the past enough? But we should never forget it. This is a building that I'm in that houses memories, names of loved ones, names of donors, generosity, and energy and love and care beyond measure. I've been the steward and the keeper of all those memories and love for the last many months. And I'm really happy that I have this opportunity. This is really important to me. I feel that my rabbinate and the moments in my life that I've been able to accomplish over the last little while have challenged me beyond imagination, and I feel gratefully that I've been able to succeed. But clearly for all of us, and I speak for myself, but I also speak for all of you, you are probably all feeling exactly as I do in some way in your life. Whether it be your work, again, looking into a camera, whether it be your families who you haven't seen because you're looking in a camera or on the phone, all those disconnects that I'm talking about, you are familiar with, where we maintain the energy we had, and we hope someday we'll be able to bring it back to some level of intimacy rather than distance. I don't want to think of a world in which we're talking through a camera forever. On the other hand, we've also let go of relationships and friendships that were only casual, or they were only in existence because of our circumstance. If we're no longer going to work out in the gym, we won't see that guy or that woman that we used to know, and we won't say hello. We won't chat about our kids, our dogs, our makeup, or football. We won't do that anymore. It's done. It just happened. There's been a year of forgetting and disconnect. And that is the story that opens up the portion of this week, the disconnect. Joseph is disconnected. He's locked in a jail. Yes, he's so talented that even in the jail, they ask him to be in charge. He's just a natural. And this week's portion opens up with, and it was the end. Vayehi miketz shnatayim shana. It was the end of 2 years. It was the end. In other words, the Torah is telling us an end is coming. And after 2 years, Pharaoh has a dream. They have nobody to interpret it. The sommelier goes, "Oh, Pharaoh, I have a kid I met in jail. He's a Hebrew. And he interpreted my dream correctly." Pharaoh goes, "Bring him in here." And they bring him in, they shave him, they put on new clothing, they bring him in front of Pharaoh, and there he is. And Joseph does a remarkable job. He takes Pharaoh's nightmares. Pharaoh has nightmares. 7 cows eating 7 cows, wheat eating wheat, destroying it, nothing going on. It's a terrible dream, and they're vivid dreams. And when Pharaoh had these dreams, it says his heart pounded. Vatipa'em rucho. He woke up with a pounding fear. What was this nightmare? What did I just feel? Nobody could help him resolve it until Joseph did. Joseph interprets the dreams of Pharaoh not as fairy tales. That's the interpreters of Pharaoh tried that. Pharaoh, you'll have 7 daughters, you'll lose 7 daughters, you'll have kids, some of them will live, some will die, some will destroy. No, Pharaoh didn't want to hear that. Pharaoh said, I don't want to have a dream that is of no consequence. I mean, not the loss of children, but the idea that it's just predicting, doom and gloom. What can we learn from my dream, says Pharaoh. Pharaoh's not a fool. I want to learn something. Let's make something out of our dreams. What was the point in having them if we didn't accomplish anything with a dream? It's up to us how to interpret our dreams. Nobody can tell you what is absolute in your dream. It's up to you. And when Pharaoh heard the interpretation that he was satisfied with, he knew his heart stopped banging, so to speak. He felt satisfied. Something good had come out of his nightmare. Wouldn't it be great if our nightmares can all turn out well? Joseph says to Pharaoh, let me tell you, Pharaoh, your dream is about disaster. It's about the collapse of the Egyptian empire. It's about hunger, it's about destruction, pestilence, potential for war, but I have a solution. Pharaoh, listening carefully, says, what do I need to learn from this? And Joseph tells him, you need a roadmap for hope. You can't just go into this with fear. You need to build a roadmap for hope. It's not just enough to hope. You have to have a roadmap. You have to have a vision. You have to know how you're going to get to hope. You need a roadmap for restoration. You need to understand how you will come back from this famine. You can't just go into famine and expect society will turn again once the water flows, once the rain flows. You're going to have societal upheaval. You need to have a restoration plan. You need to seize the opportunity, and that opportunity is, if you do it right, Pharaoh, you will have enough crops not only for your people, but you will become even wealthier by selling it to surrounding countries who have not prepared and have no roadmap for hope and recovery. And Pharaoh, you must take action. You must appoint someone who can do the job well. And Pharaoh, you and whoever you appoint must be a fearless leader, because the upheaval that you cause is going to be challenging for everybody. Nobody will want your leadership. They will grumble, they will complain, they'll talk about the disaster right in front of them, but you will know that you're staving off the great disaster of death, pestilence, and hunger afterwards. You need someone who can do what has to be done. Fearless leadership. And Joseph taught Pharaoh one of the most important lessons of management that I've learned, still learning, and here's how it goes. Those who can do, delegate to those who can do better. I feel that I can do a lot of things. I once got a certificate in Camp Aguda from Rabbi Turin, Olav Shalom. I was probably, 16 years old or so. My certificate said that I was best at everything. It's one of my favorite things, because I really wanted to be best at everything. I didn't get engaged in everything. Like, it was only things I wanted to be best at. Like basketball, I would never be best at basketball, but I could be best at fishing. Certainly working in the kitchen with my mother, cutting up chickens. It was very funny because apparently when they did the math, they saved 8 cents a chicken if they were not quartered. Well, there I was. I spent every week, Thursday, the truck came up and delivered chickens on ice. And, you got to figure there's 300 campers and 100 staff, so it's 400 people. So I probably learned how to, I learned how to quarter chickens, and I did probably 700-800 chickens a weekend, Thursday, Friday for Shabbat. That was my job. I worked in the kitchen with my mother, who was up there running the kitchen at Camp Aguda because it's not easy when you got 9 kids to make a living. And God bless her. She did whatever it took. She was great. She just took her recipes and upscaled it by 5,000. It was incredible. So, having said that, I learned how to quarter chickens like nobody's business. And you delegate. You learn how to be good at everything, but you shouldn't do everything yourself. There's no question about that. I mean, you could learn how to how to change your own brake pads, but you'd probably want to delegate that to someone who knows how to do that better than you do. And even if you're really good at some things, there are times when you should delegate because you don't have time, or it's an opportunity cost. What if doing it means you won't have time with your family? So you delegate. We do it all the time. We pay the city to pick up our garbage. We could have a dump that we have to bring it to. There's a dump not far from us. We can go to Bermondsey Road and drop off our garbage. But who wants to spend the 40 minutes a week dropping off garbage, smelly garbage in the back of your car or your truck or whatever, your SUV? Who wants to do that? We pay for that privilege. If you live in rural parts of the country, if you have a cottage up north, you'll know a lot of times you are dragging garbage to the dump. So this is a matter of when you delegate and who you delegate to, but those who can do, delegate to those who can do better. And Pharaoh says, Joseph, where am I going to find someone who can do better than me? And sure enough, he chooses Joseph, and Joseph does better than Pharaoh. What an important, powerful way to interpret dreams. A roadmap for hope, restoration, opportunity, action, fearless leadership, and delegation to those who can do better. The story continues. Now that Joseph has a big job and he's in charge, he has children. He gets married and has children. And look what he names his children. The first child he names Manasseh. Why does he name the child Manasseh? The text tells us, Joseph calls the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. Once he has his child, everything in Joseph's life changes. You would think that the greatest change in his life was being sold into slavery by his brothers. Nope. Being bought by a slave master, being falsely accused of sexual harassment and crimes and rape and all those things. Nope, that's not what was the turning point in Joseph's life. Being jailed, being forgotten, coming out, becoming the second in command of Egypt, being the king's right-hand man. Nope. The turning point in Joseph's life was having a child. Because as I've spoken about before, there's a half-life to sentimentality and resentment. Just like nuclear material, even nuclear material, after enough time, will start to dissipate. That is called the half-life. And when you have resentment, hurt, anger, frustration, betrayal, loss, when you have all those things in your life, because if you're a living human being of any consequence, you have suffered to some degree. You have history. You have anger. You have resentment. You have hurt. You have failure. You have betrayal. You have everything in your life. When does that go on until? How long does it last? Well, Joseph, when he has a child, says, "This is the half-life of my sentimentality and resentment. Everything that has been done to me is now fading. It's in the past. This is the moment. The nuclear material is fading." Unlike nuclear material, which needs thousands of years for a half-life, humanity is limited. We have limited amount of time in our lives. And the faster we get to the half-life of sentimentality and resentment, the better lives we will have. Because as we get older, we are more well-equipped to deal with disappointment and failure. We are more able to deal with loss and heartbreak. We are more able to. We also happen to have more of it. But if we are mature, we are able to face it better. Our experience and our knowledge allows us to handle all the things in life that when we were young would have crushed us. The half-life of sentimentality and resentment is represented by Menashe because Nashani Elokim, I've been allowed to forget what I need to forget. Forgetting in of itself is not always a bad thing. Joseph's second child is Ephraim. Now clearly, the half-life has begun already. Ephraim is coming in a different time, and he names him Ephraim because he says, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Joseph acknowledges that he is still in the land of his affliction. He doesn't suggest that Egypt is paradise. He doesn't suggest he'll ever forget what happened in Egypt. He doesn't suggest that he'll ever forget being that wide-eyed slave child strapped to a camel, dropped off at a slave market in Cairo, and sold to the highest bidder and led away in shackles and chains. He'll never forget that. He'll never forget going to someone's home and being their foot servant for 24 hours a day, eventually becoming the master of the home, and then being charged, imprisoned on false accusations. He'll never forget that. Who could? What he can do, however, is he can think about what does it mean to be fruitful despite the land of your affliction. It's about being grateful for all the small things. The fact that when he was in jail, he was promoted and given food and maybe his own room and maybe a warm blanket, and he wasn't beaten, and he was given the opportunity to make the jail a healthier place, and maybe there was some education. Who knows what Joseph did? He sounds like quite the extraordinary human being. Joseph understands that even in the land of your affliction, you can be grateful and you can be fruitful. And sure enough, he gets out of jail, he's successful, he's exonerated, he proves his case, he carries on, he gets married, he has children, and he's fruitful even though it's the land of his affliction. Many of us live in a land of affliction to some extent or another. A bad marriage is a land of affliction. A bad job, bad luck, bad memories, heartbreak, loss. These are the lands of affliction that we all live in. COVID is a land of affliction. The death of a loved one is a land of affliction. Mental health, loss of good health mentally is a terrible land of affliction. Physical suffering is a land of affliction. All these things are the land of affliction. And where do we fit in? It is up to us to find a way to be fruitful in the land of affliction. There is no paradise. But there is beauty and success and love and opportunity even under affliction. Now let's go back to the brothers at the end of this week's portion. What could possibly be worse for these band of brothers? This band of brothers is in jail. They came down to Egypt. They asked for food. Joseph sent them back with bags of food. They come back again. He invites them in. He says to them, go in peace. They go in peace. They open their bags at the hotel. They find the money that they were supposed to give to pay for the food in their bags. Joseph sends his messengers and says, something's up. You got money in your bags? I don't know. We got to check what's going on. Brings them back. This time he won't let Shimon go. I'm holding him as a collateral unless you go up and bring your brother. They go up, they bring their brother. Same thing happens. They have dinner with Joseph. They don't know he's Joseph. Joseph had his name changed. Joseph's Egyptian name is listed in the Torah as Tzafnat Paneach. Tzafnat Paneach means the ones who gives life by finding food. No one calls him Joseph. He's the honorable, or your master, your majesty, Tzafnat Paneach. They don't recognize him. They leave. In their bag, of course, they find the money again. But in one of their bags, of course, is the king's chalice, Joseph's chalice, his special divination chalice. And, of course, they're all brought back on charges. They're trumped up charges. But the reality is now they're in jail. Benjamin is not there, just the brothers. How worse can this get? How much worse? It cannot. Joseph, they know what they did. They spoke of what they did to Joseph. They regret it. Benjamin, Judah swore on his life he would bring his brother back. And now Benjamin has been segregated and, for all they know, never coming back. They're in jail. They're powerless. They can't get a message to their father. Their elderly father and his clan at home will starve if they don't bring food. It seems bleak and entirely hopeless. And that is where the portion ends, bleak and hopeless. But my friends, in a moment, just like in next week's portion, things will turn. Surprisingly, things will turn. Things will turn in a way that would have been unimaginable to anybody watching this story, not realizing the backstory. It looked like an open, shut disaster for the tribe and clan of Jacob. But things are about to change so dramatically. There's going to be a restoration, a family, etc. And that's what I want to say to you as we enter the new year, 2021. COVID has taken our memories. COVID has taken us to a land of affliction. We are all suffering in our own ways, whether it be larger or greater affliction, or larger loss of memory or greater loss of memory. We are all suffering. And we have to look at what the turn of the year will do for us. I know it's not the new year of Rosh Hashanah, but it does mark that moment in which we are hoping that 2021 represent a year in which everything is better. Our memories return. We forget what needs to be forgotten. We remember what must be remembered. We look at our land of affliction and we find a way to make it fruitful, to make it purposeful. And I'd like to end with a hope of one of my favorite songs of hope for human beings. And it's a Christmas song, so I'll just use the word year instead of Christmas. We don't celebrate Christmas, but there's absolutely no reason not to feel the sentimentality of this non-religious song. Maybe this year will mean something more. Maybe this year, love will appear deeper than ever before. Maybe forgiveness will ask us to call. It will ask us to call someone we love, someone we've lost, for reasons we can't quite recall. Maybe this year. Maybe there'll be an open door. Maybe the stars that shone before will shine once more. Maybe there'll be an open door, and maybe the stars that shone before will shine once more. Maybe this year will find us at last in peace. Pray for, at least, for the love we've been shown in the past. Maybe this year. Friends, let's wish for a much better year. Let's wish for a year of hope, of restoration, of opportunity, of positive action, and fearless leadership. Let's wish for a year in which we worry less about the land of affliction and more about the hopes and dreams of those we love. Let's prepare ourselves for a turning point in this story that is unimaginably good. Let's remember, when forgiveness calls, answer and say, I do. Shabbat Shalom.